You guys remember who I am, right?
Yeah. Take it away.
Okay. I promise to keep it as brief as possible. So I'm not going to talk about weather at all. But I'm going to tell a story about about the Avalanche program that I run in Wyoming, kind of like the evolution we've kind of gone through and how we've gotten to a point where now we're pretty much phasing out of artillery and we've got a lot of infrastructure. And so I'm just going to maybe give a quick overview of the avalanche hazard, the avalanche problem that we deal with the highway, and then talk about our control program, and maybe kind of talk about what a control mission looks like now compared to how it might have looked like 15 years ago. So there's actually, we actually forecast for 4 avalanche corridors, Teton Pass, which I think everyone's probably familiar with. Then there's some paths north and south of Jackson. And then these big canyons, Snake River Canyon and the Hoback River Canyon. So we don't do any control work in the Snake River Canyon, but there are a lot of avalanche paths down there. So we just do closures down there, and then we do pretty limited avalanche control work in the Hoback, but it is a pretty significant problem area. So, you know, four areas, kind of all different characteristics: Teton Pass to Mountain Pass, big starting zone, big avalanches, deep snowpacks, deep slab problems, and then Snake River Canyon is much lower in elevation. It's got really shallow snowpack, and a lot of paths are south facing, so we deal with a lot of wet slides. And then Hoback River Canyon is kind of one of the coldest places around, so it's a really weak and thin snowpack, and we get a lot of avalanche problems down there, and then a few places just right around Jackson. So, like some of the terrain in Snake River Canyon, pretty complicated. It's not very big, but you know, you got the added problem of maybe getting pushed into the river. And there's 16 named paths, and they all kind of look like this with like multiple starting zones and runouts. There's some big paths down there too that are very, very infrequent return intervals, but when they do come, it's a big deal. So we just manage that with preventative closures. Hoback Canyons, we heli-bomb at this spot. This is Granite Creek. This has put cars in the river in the past. South facing, small paths, but still can put a lot of snow on the road. And then there's these paths right around Jackson. This is just north of town. This is the Welcome to Jackson Hole sign right here. And these all kind of run in the same cycles, lots of southerly winds, cold frontal passage, lots of wind loading. Get a lot of animal triggered slides here, hard slabs on depth ore, almost always. So basically every road into and out of Jackson can and has been closed by avalanches, and sometimes they can be pretty significant. This slide in the Snake River Canyon put 7 cars in the river, completely buried a pickup truck, and luckily the river was frozen. Maybe the closest call we've had at Whiteout was with one of our own. It's an avalanche that buried a snowplow driver on Teton Pass at the Glory Bowl. Blew all the windows out, completely encased him in snow, tore the plow off, carried it like 2,000 feet down to the Crater Lake, and dug the driver out with a coffee can because you can't fit a shovel in a cab of a pickup. So the guy, super cold, Don Fisher, hypothermic, but otherwise okay, was back at work a week later. And then actually I started at Whiteout in 2002, and they put a new cab on this truck, and that's what we were still plowing the pass with the first 5 years I worked there. So kind of the story of avalanche control at Whiteout starts with the late 60s. They realigned the highway over Teton Pass. And one of the solutions was to build a bridge at Glory Bowl, and the idea was, of course, the debris would just go under the bridge and not impact the road. But you know, no active control work and no forecasting program. And so before the bridge was even completed, January 1971, Climax Avalanche destroyed the bridge. Glory Bowl is 50 acres, and basically 50 acres came out about 4 to 5 feet deep. So Class 5 slide destroyed the bridge before they could pour a deck on it. And so that's when they decided they needed avalanche control. They tore the bridge out, kind of realigned the highway, and that began our history with artillery. So this was a big embarrassment for YDOT for like, 30 years. So in 1971, they got a 75 millimeter pack howitzer to shoot the glory ball, and then like one of the first generation Avalanchers for shooting the twin slides at the summit. And by the mid-70s, we were using recoilless rifle like a lot of places. This is a 105 millimeter recoilless, and that's what we used right up until 1998. Bridger Bowl, a lot of history with the 75 recoilless, and there are a lot of weapon systems floating around for a long time. A lot of people using 75 pack howitzers, 75 recoilless, 105 millimeter recoilless, and 20 years of using this thing. They had it mounted on a snowcat, so originally it was that Thiokol snowcat, and then they got a piston bully, but huge operation to go do a control mission. Got to load this thing up on a lowboy, drive it up there, rattle it up the hill, shoot the glory ball, drive over the debris pile, set it up again, shoot twin slides. And in the 90s, 80s, not a lot of pressure to keep the road open. They just close the road, do a control mission, have lunch, build a fire, have a nice day out. And, we're doing about 5,000 cars a day on Teton Pass right now, so it's our average daily. So busy days, maybe double that even. So a lot of pressure on us to keep the highway open. So in 1998, new weapon system, 105 millimeter M102 howitzer, kind of a 1970s era Vietnam era gun. It's towable. It's got an own trailer and pretty effective gun. 7-mile range, semi-fixed ammunition, blind fire capable. A lot of Snowbird had one briefly. Yellowstone had one for a long time, and good gun, just built for the jungle. So doesn't really like it when it's 0 degrees out and cold. So a lot of blown recoils with these guns, a lot of problems. Taos had one, and YDOT and Taos were the last ones to have this weapon system. And then all this stuff is leased from the military, so they kind of call the shots. We don't own any of it, we just borrow it. And so in 2011, the Army basically said, everybody on these M101 guns. So I drove to Barstow, California and picked up a howitzer and brought it back to Wyoming. So, and this gun is the industry standard now. So there's no more 75 millimeter packs, there's no more recoilless rifles, there's no more M102 howitzers. Everybody's shooting the M101A1, except, Washington DOT does have a couple tanks with heaters.
So you gotta step up to the plate.
Yeah, I'm sure the heater works good in that thing too, So, and these guns are like this. The gun I got's not from 1944, so we just pull them out of the desert, recondition them, and off we go. So, but really good weapon system, really kind of the industry standard for everybody right now, and a pretty robust supply of guns and parts, and probably the biggest unknown is maybe technical support, like getting people from the Army to basically maintain these guns, because artillery is kind of really phasing out of the military. So basically everybody's on this M101A1 howitzer, at least from the Army. It's kind of the standard, the industry standard now, except for a couple tanks which will be going away in the next few years because there's no ammo left for the tanks, for the M1 tanks. Blind fire capable means we can shoot it in any sort of weather. We just dial up the data, and we can super repeatable. It's not like shooting an Avalanche, I can tell you that. The round actually goes where you point the barrel. Doesn't really care what the wind's doing. Doesn't really care what the temperature is. So pretty effective. And so we've used this. We use this on 3 firing bases, and I'd say maybe the advantage to artillery is a lot of people think it's inexpensive. You can hit a lot of targets from one location. But when I started in 2002, a howitzer round was $18, and now they're about $100. So that's really changed things a lot. And then, you go to get a gun refurbished, and it's about $30,000. And if you got to redo your firing bases, that's added cost. And you got annual maintenance, you got lease fees. If you shoot a lot of rounds, these things are probably worth it. But it's for us, we're not shooting a lot of rounds anymore. And it's hard to justify all the headaches that come with this. So it's a great tool, but you got it in the right situation. It's a good fit. And plus for us, towing it into place, shoveling off a fire base, chipping all the ice off, setting the gun up. You need a 4-man crew is how we operate. You got to go get the ammo. You got to build the rounds. Then you got to start shooting. And so I wouldn't say it's efficient the way we operate. Some of these other programs have buildings, where they just roll up the garage door and get to work. So, and then you're not out in the weather too, which is the other thing. Like working out in the weather in the elements or in the dark is an added challenge. And then you've got unexploded ordnance with these things too, which it's so about a 1% dud rate with howitzers, but still got to deal with these things or go and try and find them. So historically, we've used artillery on 3 main places. The summit of Teton Pass, shooting twin slides, really high return interval, south facing. This thing comes to the highway at least, return interval probably around 1.5 annual. And it's mostly the lower twin to the highway. That's a return interval, about 1.5. And, we get a lot of west winds, just in cross loads. We get, even small slides can tend to make the highway. And then, of course, the Glory Bowl, it's a really big path, 50 acres, multiple targets in this thing. And get skied a lot it's pretty common for this thing to get skied on a daily basis, and multiple starting zones just within that 50 acres. And then the Hoback River Canyon, this is the place that we were really looking for a solution that I'm going to talk about. It's the Obellx Gas Exploder. This is a really challenging place. We struggle with this avalanche path. You can't access this terrain in the winter. We have no weather data. You can't see up here. You basically drive down here and look, and if there's snow in the trees. Well, the wind didn't blow last night. That's about all I can tell you. And this is cow of the woods here. It's calf of the woods. Super steep. Any sort of size 1 slide is probably going to make the highway. And we set up down here in the highway, and we're kind of shooting these really tight lob shots. I don't know, charge once. We're just threading them in here. It's a really tight. It's about as precise as you can get with this gun, what we're doing down there. So if anybody shoots artillery, we're shooting about 700 mils, which is about as high as anybody shoots. So anyhow, a lot of pressure on Wideout over the years to have a more efficient avalanche control program, keep the highway open more, keep it safer. Certainly I approach it from any sort of avalanche onto the open highway is a failure as far as I'm concerned in our forecast and control program. So I take it super seriously, and it was pretty loose for a long time, but we've really tried to tighten it up. And so a lot of pressure on the highway department in the early 90s. A lot of talk about snow sheds on Teton Pass, and so they went through with maybe designing some snow sheds, but in the end they heard about Gas Exploders at maybe a tenth of the cost of a snow shed or less. So in 1992 they built 2 Gas Exploders, one in Twin Slides, one in Glory Bowl. They're made in France. They're remotely operated. It's just a gas exploder, so it uses propane and oxygen. Just a little propane and a lot of oxygen. So 1 part propane to 6 parts oxygen. And then you get a really large and effective air blast. And so there's kind of 2 parts to this system. You've got the exploder tube, which is built in the starting zone. And so the gas, you basically turn the gas on with the computer. It goes down, it mixes in the exploder tube, and then there's an ignition system, kind of spark plug ignition system that is pneumatically operated that sparks and triggers the detonation. Really large, effective explosion. These are 2.6 cubic meters of gas. It's probably equivalent to like 10 or 15 pounds of Comp B on a stick. So it's a big bang. I have not heard of any sort of post-control release with these things, but
Looks like a low danger that day.
Yeah, fire danger maybe. We do, so pre-season we test fire everything, you know, you just gotta, it's not like they struggle with these things for a long time because you don't just build these things and just leave them up there and they just work. It's just like a weather station or whatever. Computer, a radio, valves, like a plumbing at 10,000 feet, not so great. And then these things, you know, they blow up for a living, so a lot of things trying to get away from each other. And so, yeah, so there's kind of two parts to the system, though. There's the exploder tube, and then there's the central gas shelter, all your electronics, your valves, your compressed oxygen, your propane, and the dosage tanks, and you got to get the mix just right, or you will not get the proper detonation. You'll get deflagration, but not detonation, or you might not even get in detonation if you don't have your gas mixture just right. So there's kind of a lot of things going on, but it is a pretty well-made system. So yeah, over almost 20 years old with these original ones. So they built 2 in 92, 2 more in 93, and I made a pretty good hobby of working on these things for the last 10 years because, you know, well, yeah, they blow up for a living. So here we are welding in the middle of winter. Easy troubleshooting this day. I walked up, there were manifolds laying in the snow, so, you know, that's the problem. But just constant maintenance, so every summer flying a welder up, patching cracks, making sure these things are good to go for the winter. And the first two are the most troublesome, or were the most troublesome. And so, you know, to have a more reliable system, to get away from artillery has kind of become our backup in these zones. And we really needed to have a more reliable GasX system, and part of that. So last summer we did an in-house install of new style GasX, which are these inertia exploders, so they're a little different. Instead of being completely rigid, this is a 3,500 pound counterweight that just sits on a concrete block, and there's the exploder sits here and it's got a hinge. So when it bangs, it picks the counterweight up. So it's got a little recoil in it. So instead of everything trying to be rigid. So, you know, the hope is that these new ones will be a lot more robust. And so we did one in twin slides. We replaced the oldest one in twin slides and the oldest one in the Glory Bowl. Last summer we did that in-house. So that was just a big retrofit. But it took us probably took us almost 2 months to get that done. It's just a lot of work up there. These things are pretty big, a lot of helicopter flying. So we did it in-house. We had about 100,000 bucks in capital costs, and then another 50,000 in installation costs. We did save the state quite a bit of money, probably about $100,000 by doing it ourselves. And then we upgraded our tanks and valves. Like I said, it's a lot of plumbing at 10,000 feet, and the stuff was just old and needed to be replaced. So it's pretty much a pretty good rat's nest of valves, and all these valves run pneumatically. There's electronics. There's a lot going on in these things. So you kind of got to really, wouldn't say you just build a system and say, all right, let's go, let's push the button. It takes a lot of, you got to know your way around it. You kind of got to learn it. But I will say that we really like it, you know. The other thing that we're using are these Avalanche guard boxes. I don't know if people are familiar with these. There's not many of them in the United States. They're more common in Europe. But in 2003, we built 2 towers with 2 boxes each. Each box has 10 10-pound Comp B boosters in it. And then there's a black powder cup that can launch this thing out. You can kind of, the boxes are on a cog, so you can kind of move them around, but once they're fixed, the azimuth is fixed for the season. And then you could have a couple different loads of black powder in there if you want to throw one short, throw one far. Remotely operated. So basically you call it up with the radio, door opens, you tell it which tube you want to shoot, launches that 10-pounder out. We double cap everything that we use, and then there's pull wire igniters that you crimp on to the fuse, and a lanyard pulls them. So it is a little weird getting these things ready for the season and closing the door with 10 10-pounders all double capped and fused with the pull wire igniters on them. You know, it's not how you do things in the city patrol building, right? And then there's and then the black powder cup gets a little electric match wire set up too. So they're really well made, really well thought out, really reliable. I relocated one in 2010 because I was having some problems with some skier triggered. I had one spot in the glory ball I'll show you that I was having problems with, so I relocated one in 2010. That took away one of our howitzer shots. We were having a lot of problems with skier triggered and etc. So one in twin, one in glory. So just looking at the glory ball and like phasing out of artillery now, there's a lot of targets in this thing with howitzers. This whole zone down here can be independent of the upper zone. This is kind of a cliff band runs through here. It's a lot lower angle. It's only like 32 degrees, where up here this is about 38 right here. This is northeast facing. This is more southerly. So this is due east right here. This is northeast. This is southeast. So the snowpack tends to be a little stronger on this side, quite a bit weaker over here. Full on 38-degree rollover, and then there's a lot of little pockets that can be problematic. So there's 3 Gas Exploders in the glory bowl. And then there's the Avalanche guard's kind of on this ridge line right here. So it provides a little bit of redundancy with these Gas Exploders just on this side, and then it also can shoot downhill into this area. So that's why I moved it, so I could get this spot. Because before that was a heli bomb or a howitzer mission. So Avalanche guard shot, kind of one there, and one down here. It's kind of my setup. And with that, I can basically, I'm pretty confident that I can manage that terrain really effectively with those shots. Plus with those Gazex detonations, that's a lot. That's a big air shot. That thing, pretty confident in the control work that goes on with those. So as long as they're working, we get one that doesn't work, then we do have some redundancy with the Avalanche guard, which is great because you really start to rely on these things. And you build infrastructure, you can't shoot howitzer targets at your Gazex exploders. Unless you want to explain that to someone. So that's kind of how we're managing that terrain. So, and then a couple other things I'll just mention really quick. This is a zone called Rocky Gulch. You can't quite see it over here, but occasionally we'll have problems here, really low return interval, and honestly, if we have problems, we should probably just be closed. And that's how I approach it usually, but we do stick, we'll build ammo shots and stick them on a 2x4 down at the road, and we were able to trigger slides up here, and that's about 500 vertical, or probably not 500, but it's a long ways up there, but get that ammo shot up real high and at the road surface, so we can do that during any sort of regular control mission. So we've had pretty good luck with the case charging there. So really, there's only one target left on Teton Pass, howitzer target, that we don't have a solution for right now. And that's like a 20-year return interval on that thing. So if that's a problem, we should just be closed. So the Cow of the Woods was it's kind of a different animal, this is 8,000 feet, but it's due north facing, it's really cold, snowpack's really thin, we get a lot of wind, we never go to the starting zone, we probably never will in the wintertime. Challenging terrain. This highway does not have, this is our lowest traffic volumes at any highway we manage, so that is a good thing, but we get any sort of small size ones making the highway. And we'll get big ones down here too. So I was looking for a solution for this. You can't really build Gazex here because you can't access it, so what are you going to do if it breaks down unless you have a helicopter pad? And it's a roadless area, so it can't cut green trees, so I can't really build a helicopter pad. So Cow of the Woods here, so basically I have an Obellx right here now, and we built one last summer right here. And then I'm permitted to build another one if I want somewhere in this zone, but I don't know if I'm going to need it. So anyhow, I was looking for a solution for this spot. This was our main spot for a howitzer, and the howitzer's a great tool. It's just, the other thing that we don't have any road close gates down on this corridor, so you can't really do preventative closures at night. Or you can't really I'm not going to make a guy stand out there with a stop slow sign. It's just tough terrain to manage. There's a lot of challenges there. So really was looking for some infrastructure where we could make our operation a lot more efficient. The howitzers just takes a lot of manpower, takes a lot of time, takes a lot of setup, and then we're just threading these shots in there. You can't even see if they're landing in the starting zone. You just can hear the boom. So, yeah, I don't think the reverse lights are going to do it, but you know, this is a little one. This is right after we had a big cycle. We cleaned up, we done control work, we'd heli-bombed, 40-foot pile of snow. We're all cleaned up, sound asleep after not sleeping for 3 days, and I got a call, and I go down there, and it's just this little size one, but there's just nowhere for the snow to go. So here we are. And this thing will put the big wet slab in the road too. So, place we really struggle with. So the Obellx Gas Exploder is something I learned about at ISSW, and I have a pretty good relationship with TAS, which manufactures Gazex, and they make these Obellx Gas Exploders. So I was super interested. I'm a believer in the technology, and this seemed like a perfect fit for this. So we got some research money, and we built the first one in North America a few years ago, in 2014. And this is it's all self-contained, so there's no, like the Gazex has that central gas shelter. This is all self-contained, so it's got all the electronics, it's got all the valves, it's got the gas, it's got a battery. It's all kind of contained in the unit. And instead of propane and oxygen, it's hydrogen and oxygen. And instead of 6-to-1, it's actually 2 parts hydrogen to 1 part oxygen. So it's a really fast detonation, where the propane's a little slower, more of a boom. This is more of a crack. And then its helicopter can deploy it onto the stand and can go retrieve it too, with a mechanical grabber. So you don't have to be up on site to get the thing. So the helicopter can just go up, bring it back down. There you are on flat ground with all your tools, spare parts, spare gas cylinders, whatever you need. You got your pickup truck and all your stuff, and you can just do your maintenance instead of doing it on the side of a mountain in the middle of whatever. Where we're set up, we're running it with aluminum cylinders. We can get 9 shots. The thing weighs about 1,400 pounds. So at 8,000 feet, that's super doable for some light duty ships. If you were to take it up to 10,000 feet, you'd probably be, they just built one in Little Cottonwood Canyon, and it's about 9,500 feet, and they're like right at the limit of what an A-Star can do to haul this thing around. And so they might be looking to use a medium lift ship. Just makes the logistics a little more complicated. If you use steel and cylinders, you bump the weight up a couple hundred pounds, we can double the shot capacity. It's only 0.8 cubic meters, but it's at hydrogen, so it's a pretty good bang. Where the Gazex, the old ones are 2.6 cubic meters, and the new ones are 1.5. Computer with a radio, and we have that mechanical grabber that you can just put on the helicopter long line. You can go up and grab it. It's got basically like a big trailer ball on the top of it that grabs onto. These things cost about $165,000 plus installation. The first one was paid to install, it was about $65K, and then we did ours in-house last year for about $25. And mostly that's all helicopter time. 2-year warranty. I got to tell you, the first year we got it, they were pretty new. Basically, the thing didn't work very well at all. So we really struggled with it, but TAS really, the warranty, they paid for all we struggled with power issues, basically. It really didn't have enough solar panels on it. Then we went to production before it was ready. You hang a lot of electronics on something that goes bang and things come apart, so they did a lot of high-speed photography. They figured out what was wrong. They refit our whole unit the next summer. So everything's on like rubber bushings. Electronics are filled with silicone so they don't rattle. And we've had great luck with it ever since. And so since we had so much success with it, we built another one in the adjacent path last summer. it's kind of what it looks like to get a sense for how big it is. This was the original one with these really junky solar panels. It didn't do it for us, and so we mostly just struggled with power issues and some valve stuff, but we got most of that solved. So we bought this grabber for $5,000 that we have in the shop. It's mechanical, it's what grabs onto the unit, and then they built this pretty slick, like Pelican case laptop, and we just roll down there with the whole unit and shoot it from the road. What's back inside? That's just looking into the thing. Everything's just self-contained in there. So the tower is basically the male end, and the bell just slides right over that thing. Helicopter can put it on there. A decent pilot can put it on there pretty readily. It took us 2 months to retrofit our GasX system. It took us 4 days to build an Obellx. So once we got staged in there and got our site cleared off, we bolted down a drilling jig, and then we blasted in 4 6-foot 2-inch diameter holes, and then epoxied in our anchor bar, and then it just gets a little 10-inch slab. So if you've got solid rock, you can put these things in fast. And they can go anywhere. If you've got dirt too, you could do it, but you just have to pour a big block of concrete. So it'd just be another fly day. Complicate the install a little bit. So this is the one we built last year in the adjacent path, Calf of the Woods, and we got a mast extension on this one. And there's our little slab. So yeah, 4 days to put that thing in. It looks like a spaceship, doesn't it? All right, let's see if this works. Oh, it's pretty dry. Not looking so hot.
Looks like one of Doug's videos.
Well, I'll just find the raw file and play it maybe after the. Oops. I've got a video of it going bang, and it's cool. I promise. And then so that's kind of how we've evolved out of artillery. We've built infrastructure. It's made our operations a lot more effective and efficient. And but one other project we did, big infrastructure investment, was this path that's just south of town called the 151. That's the mile marker that's right there. But this is a pretty big avalanche path. This is a 5-lane highway with 15,000 cars a day. And this thing's got a return interval of, it's less than 1, but it's probably like 0.75. So this thing comes to the highway frequently. And this is a big pit here, and it'll go through this pit, cross 10 lanes of road, and bury this fence. And then put 10, 15 feet of snow on the highway. There's been some accidents here in the past. There's been some close calls here. There's been a lot of animal-triggered slides. There's been a deer that went through the back window of a car in an avalanche. There's been this vehicle that got pushed off the road. It's wildlife closure, so they don't really want us accessing it. They certainly don't want us controlling it, but we do heli-bomb it, we do hand charge it, or we did. And so, one thing that we struggle with where we're at with we're spread pretty thin in a big avalanche cycle. It's not like everything waits for us to get our act together. So it's like triage, like we'll just close Teton Pass and focus on Snake River Canyon or whatever. And this one was scary. This one was really scary. So, and it's all by itself. So we really wanted to take it out of the equation. So we went through the NEPA process with the Forest Service, and we ended up building snow supporting structures in this path. So we basically eliminated this one from our program. So instead of just being stretched so thin on a big avalanche cycle, we can at least, that one's not a problem. Let's focus on Teton Pass, or let's close the pass and go down the Hoback and then get back up on the pass and see what we got, So, and the reason this made a lot of sense was it's the only path, it's all by itself. So this is a big investment. This is about, $1.5 million job. And it was interesting. I don't know if I have a good, I meant to throw one more photo in here, but if you go to Europe, these snow supporting structures are built in in straight lines, you know, and you can see them forever, right? And they kind of they don't look that great. It looks bad, I think, you know. So part of the NEPA process was to kind of stagger these. The Swiss guidelines don't say how you got to build these. They just say you got to retain a certain amount of, you got to retain some spacing and retain a certain amount of square footage of snow. So they're staggered, so you actually they don't stand out as much. So that was a big deal for the Forest Service. Anyhow, so the NEPA process is super cumbersome, but I think it works really well. And I'll just try and wrap it up here. One other thing we do is we developed this infrasonic avalanche detection technology, which is basically these sensors that are out there listening for avalanches, and they give us, it works as a warning system and as also a detection system. So if it detects something, identifies it as an avalanche, sends a text message to my phone. We mostly use it in control situations, but we developed it there. We've had a lot of success. They've implemented it in Little Cottonwood Canyon, and it works. Their system was able to build on everything we'd learned over like 7 years of developing it, and their system is unbelievable. And you know, it's a really great tool. So anyhow, it takes some interpretation, but it's a cool system. And then automated road closure gates, that was a big thing we invested in, which you'd think would be quite common, but they're not. So just, you know, really trying to have accurate forecasting. We can, in a control mission, we get a press release out and try and get the word out to the public, and then we'll close the road using the gates. There's a forward observer on the mountain, like on Teton Pass, gives the all clear. Guy in the office pushes the button, boom, boom, boom. Detonations are confirmed with infrasonic. Got a rotary on hand to clear debris, get the highway back open with the gates. So we can be open, and if we don't have avalanches to the highway, we can be open in 30 minutes. So that's pretty darn efficient. And manpower's, you know, doesn't take a lot of manpower. And then, you know, you get a big avalanche that puts 50 feet of snow on the road, you're closed. You're closed for a while. You've got some work to do. So, you know, cleanup operations are kind of the thing that'll slow us down with control work at this point. And then in the Hoback, I mean, we basically, we can go down there and do a control mission in under 5 minutes with 3 guys. So, and so basically, you know, we're really trying to have accurate forecasting. The state's been really supportive. We've made a lot of big investments in avalanche control and technology. We definitely have safer highways. We have maybe not fewer closures, but our closure times are certainly much shorter. And we're trying to, you know, shoot early, shoot often is kind of the motto in the highway business, and this just allows us to do that a lot more efficiently. So, and then probably in the next 2 years we'll be trading in our gun. Any questions? I'll see if I can find that video, but if there's some questions, I'm happy to answer them. I don't know where it is. Okay, let's go drink beer.
What's a snow tunnel cost for Glory?
Sorry?
What would be like an avalanche bridge or tunnel cost for Glory?
20 million.
40 million?
20.
20 million?
We just built a bridge at Hoback Junction. Actually, the most recent project, we just built a 1,000-foot wall, big wall, $10 million bucks. So like construction costs for highway stuff is, for any sort of structure, they figure in like at least $10,000 a foot. Bridge, Smith's bridge structure. Yeah, so 20 grand, nothing.
Jamie, do you rely solely on the rotary to clean out the debris, or is there a variety of
big piles? We'll go get a bulldozer for big piles.
Is it all staged to the top prior to operation, or you just
we try and have the rotary on site, and if it's anything, the cutting bars on the rotary are about 20 feet tall, and if it's beyond that, we'll go get a loader, and then at least with the loader, you can just kind of knock it into the highway, and the rotary can blow it out. But yeah, the big piles.
That far, it's just down at the bottom in Wilson.
Yeah, we can just bring the loader up. You have to chain it up though to get it up on the pass. And you get a big pile of snow. It's a lot of messing around. But I've seen 50 feet of snow on the highway at Glory, and we just went and got a bulldozer because he can crawl up on the pile and then just start pushing it off the edge. So, I have no Is there volume? Is there sound?
No volume.
No volume. Well, it's not going to be very exciting without volume.